Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, class. How are you guys today? I hope you all are in a good condition. So today we're going to learn about genetics.
Before we start the class, let's pray by reading Al-Fatihah and prayer text before learn. Pray begin.
Now, please show your presence by tapping your name and your ID number in the chat panel, and I will wait for 2 minutes.
Thank you for showing your presence. Now I will explain the agenda for today's agenda. First, I will give some theory explanation about genetics. Second, I will show you some complementary video about genetics, and you can take a note about important point from the video. Third, there are discussion times so every single one of you should deliver the things you get after watching the video to the class and other so respond. And last one is the closing statement from me before we end the class.
So that's what we are going to do. Is there any question for today's agenda? If there are no questions, let's start the first agenda explaining the theory about genetics. Okay, so it's the theory about genetics. It's about gene, DNA, and chromosome. The first one is overview about DNA and genes. So genetics is the scientific study of heredity and the variation of inherited characteristics. So it includes the study of genes themselves, how they function, interact, and produce the visible and measurable characteristics we see individuals and population of species as they change from one generation to the next over time and in different environments. And then it's heredity. Heredity refers to the genetic heritage passed down by our biological parents. Humans have always been aware that characteristics of an individual plant or animal in a population could be passed down through the generation. Offspring look more like their parents. Humans also knew that some heritable characteristics, such as the size or color of roots, varied between individuals, and that they could select or breed crops and animal for the most favorable traits. Knowledge of these heredity properties has been of significant value in the history of human development. In the past, humans could only manipulate and select from naturally existing combination of genes. More recently, with the discovery of the substance and nature of genetic material, DNA, we can now identify, clone, and create novel, better combination of genes that will serve our goals. Understanding the mechanism of genetics is fundamental to using it wisely and for the betterment of all. Okay, so this is the history of DNA as a genetic material. It's the first one is Griff transformation experiments from 1928. It's microbiologists identified two strains of the bacterium Streptococcus pneumoniae. So the number two, the experiment number two is Avery McLeod and McCarthy's experiment from 1944. It's research DNA as the genetical material from bacteria, and it concluded that DNA was the genetical material. The third experiment is by Hershey and Chase experiment from 1952. It is the research conclude that DNA was the material that contained genetic instructions. Number four is Mendelssohn and Stoll experiment from 1958. It's a research about DNA replication. So there are some research that proving DNA as the genetical material. Okay, next one is the structure of the DNA. From Chargaff rules, we can know that DNA is made up of a series for different types of molecules called base or nucleotides. There are adenine, the symbol is A, cytosine, the symbol is C, thymine, the symbol is T, and guanine, the symbol is G. Chargaff had observed that for any given species, the abundance of A was the same as T, and G was the same as C. This is the structure of DNA itself for double helix. So Watson and Crick deduced a structure for DNA that was consistent with Chargaff rules and with X-ray crystallography data that was obtained with some controversy from another research named Rosalind Franklin. In Watson and Crick's famous double helix, each of the two strands contain DNA bases connected through covalent bonds to a sugar phosphate backbone. Because one side of a sugar molecule is always connected to the opposite side of the next sugar molecule, each strand of DNA has polarity. These are called the 5' and the 3' end. In, accord, in accordance with the nomenclature of the carbons in the sugars, two strands of the double helix run in antiparallel or opposite direction with the 5' end of one strand and adjacent to the 3' end of the other strand. The double helix has a right-hand twist, and the DNA base extends from the backbone toward the center of the helix, with a pair of bases from each strand forming hydrogen bonds that help to hold the two strands together. Under most conditions, the two strands are slightly offset, which create a major groove on one face of the double helix and a minor groove on the other. Because of the structure of the base, A can only form hydrogen bonds with T, and G can only form hydrogen bonds with C. Like the Chargaff rules before, each strand is therefore said to be complementary to the other, and so each strand also contains enough information to act as a template for the synthesis to the other. This complementary redundancy is important in the DNA replication and repair. So this is genes as are the basic unit of inheritance. The once prevalent concept of blending inheritance proposes that some undefined essence in its entirety contain all of the heritable information for an individual. It was thought that mating combined the essence from each parent, much like the mixing of two colors of paint. Once blended together, the individual characteristics of the parents could not be separated again. However, Gregor Mendel was one of the first to take a quantitative scientific approach to the study of heredity. Mendel showed that white flowered plants could be produced by crossing two purple flowered plants, but only if the purple flowered plants themselves had at least one white flowered parent. This was evidence that the genetic factor that produced white flowers had not blended irreversibly with the factor for purple flowers. Mendel's observation disproved blending inheritance and favored an alternative concept called particulate inheritance, in which heredity is the product of discrete factors that control independent traits. So this is the picture about Mendel's experiment.
Next, about two, chromosome, meiosis, and mitosis. Next. DNA is packaged into chromatin. Number one, DNA can be highly compacted. If such to its full length, the DNA molecule of the large human chromosome will be 85 mm. Yet during mitosis and meiosis, this DNA molecule is compacted into a chromosome approximately 5 UM long. Number 2, level of compaction. There are several different levels of structural organization in eukaryotic chromosome, with each successive level contributing to the further compaction of DNA. Figure 2.1.2, each level involves a specific set of proteins the association with the DNA to compact it. Number 3, chromatin packaging varies inside the nucleus, chromatin and heterochromatin. The material that makes up chromosome, which we now know to be protein and DNA, is called chromatin. Basically, there are two major types of chromatin, but these are more at the end of a continuum and various spectrum. Number 4, morphological feature of chromosome. Chromosome also contain other distinctive features such as centromeres and telomeres, but of these are usually heterochromatin. Next. Figure 2.1.2 successive stage of chromosome compaction depend on the introduction of additional protein. Figure 2.1.3, a pair of metacentric chromosomes, the arrow shows a centromeric region, primary constriction. Next. Figure 2.1.4, relationship between chromosome and chromatin. Figure 2.1.5, top piece fluorescence in situ hybridization, labeling of all 24 different human chromosomes, 1 to 22 X and A, in a fibroblast nucleus, each with a different combination of in total 7 fluorochromosomes. Bottom false color representation of all chromosome territories visible in this midsection after computer classification. Next. Then A is packaged into chromatin. Number 5. Chromosome and DNA replication. All DNA polymerase synthesis new strands by adding nucleotides to the three heads group present on the previous nucleotide. DNA polymerases use a single strand of DNA as a template upon which it will synthesize the complementary sequence. This works fine for the middle of chromosome, DNA-directed DNA polymerases travel along the original DNA strands, making complementary strands. Figure 2.1.6a. Figure 2.1.6, DNA polymerases make new strands in a 5-to-3 direction. A. Regular DNA polymerases are proteins or protein complex that use a single strand of DNA as a template. For example, the main human DNA polymerases. While A is a large protein complex made of 4 polypeptides. B. Telomerases use their own RNA as a template. The human telomerase is a complex made of 1 polypeptide and 1 RNA molecule. Next. Chromosome and DNA replication. DNA replication in both prokaryotes and eukaryotes begin at an origin of replication or chromosome replication began with the binding of the DNA initiator protein to end at reach 9 mer in ORI. And melt the two strands. The four continue in opposite direction until they meet another form of the end of the chromosome. Figure 217. Figure 217, an origin of replication. The sequence specific DNA duplex is melted, then the primase synthesis RNA primer from which bidirectional DNA replication began as the two replication form head off in opposite direction. The leading and lagging strands are shown along with Okazaki fragments, not the 5 and 3 orientation of all strands. Next. Chromosome and DNA replication. The end of linear chromosome presents a problem at age and one strands cannot be completely replicated because there is no primer to extend. Telomerases are RNA-directed DNA polymerases. After the telomerase has made the first strand a primase synthesis, an RNA primer and a regular DNA polymerase can then make a complementary strand so that the telomere DNA will ultimately be double-stranded to the original length. Figure 218. Figure 218 telomere replication showing the completion of the leading strand and incomplete replication of the lagging strands. The gap is replication by the extension of the 3N by telomerase and then filled in by extension of an RNA primer. Next. Next, number 6. Eukaryote chromosomes have multiple origins of replication. In prokaryotes, with a small, simple circular chromosome, only one origin of replication is needed to replicate the whole genome. However, in less more complicated eukaryotes with multiple linear chromosomes, more than one origin of replication is required per chromosome to duplicate the whole chromosome set in the egg heart of as part of the cell cycle. Thus, eukaryotes contain multiple origins of replication distributed over the length of each chromosome to enable the duplication of each chromosome within the observed time of S phase. Figure 219. Figure 219, part of a eukaryote chromosome showing multiple origins 1, 2, 3 of replication, each defining a replicant 1, 2, 3 replication may start at different times in a space. Here, 1 and 2 begin first, then 3. As the replication for process bidirectionally decreases, what are referred to as replication bubbles that meet and form less bubble. The end result is two semi-conservatively replicated duplex DNA strands, original log CCAN. Next. Mitosis. Cell growth and division is essential to asexual reproduction and the development of multicellular organisms. Accordingly, the primary function of mitosis is to ensure that at division, each daughter cells inherit identical genetic material, EVA, exactly one copy of each chromosome. To make this happen, replicates chromosome condense propares and are positioned near the middle of the dividing cell's metaphase. And then each of the sister chromatids from each chromosome migrates toward opposite poles of the dividing cell anaphase until the identical sets of unreplicate chromosomes are completely separated from each other within the two newly produced cells telophase figure 210 and 211. This is followed by the division of the cytoplasm cytokinesis to complete the process. The movement of chromosomes occurs through microtubules that attach to the chromosome at the centromeres. Next, mitosis. Figure 2-10. Mitosis in Arabidopsis showing fluorescently labeled chromosome blue on microtubules green at metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. From left to right. Figure 2-11, mitosis and meiosis. Note the similarities and differences between metaphase in mitosis and metaphase 1 and 2 of meiosis. Next. Meiosis. In meiosis, there are usually two steps, meiosis 1 and 2. In meiosis 1, homologous chromosomes segregate, while in meiosis 2, sister chromatids segregate. Most multicellular organisms use meiosis to project gametes, the cells that fuse to make offspring. Some single-celled eukaryotes, such as yeast, also use meiosis. Meiosis 1 and 2. Meiosis begins similarly to mitosis. A cell has replicated its chromosome and grown large enough to divide, but requires 2 rounds of division. Figure 238. Cells that will undergo the process of meiosis are called meiosis and are diploid to end. Meiosis is divided into 2 stages designated by the Roman numerals 1 and 2. Meiosis 1 is called a reductional division because it reduces the number of chromosomes inherited by each of the daughter cells. Meiosis 1 is further divided into prophase 1, metaphase 1, anaphase 1, and telophase 1, which are roughly similar to the corresponding stage of mitosis, except that in prophase 1 and metaphase 1, homologous chromosomes pair with each other, or synapses, and are called bifurcations. Figure 212. During anaphase 1, one member of each pair or homologous chromosome migrates to each daughter cell's 1N. Meiosis 2 resembles mitosis with one sister chromatid from each chromosome separating to project 2 daughter cells because meiosis 2, like mitosis, result in the segregation of sister chromatids. Meiosis 2 is called an equational division. Next. Figure 2.3.12, meiosis and Arabidopsis M25. Panel A to C show different stages of prophase 1, each with an increasing degree of chromosome condensation. Subsequent phases are shown. Metaphase 1, D, telophase 1, E, metapase 2F, anapase 2G, and telopase 2H. Next. Stage of Propase 1. In meiosis, Propase 1 is divided up into 5 visual stages: leptogen, zygote, persistence, diplosin, and diakinesis. From interphase, a cell enters leptogen as the nuclear material began to condense into long visible trace chromosomes. During zygote, homolog chromosome began to pair up snaps and form an elaborate structure called the synaptonymal complex along their length. Outpositing homologous chromosomes are fully synapses to chromosome and form chromatids to form bivalent. Crossing over takes place in positing. After this, the pairing began to rose and individual chromatids become apparent in diffusion. Meiosis II and gene maturation. At the completion of meiosis I, there are two cells, each with one replicate copy of each chromosome 1n. Because the number of chromosomes per cell has decreased to 1, meiosis 1 is called reductional cell division. Meiosis 2 resembles mitosis in that the number of chromosomes per cell is unchanged. Both are equational cell division, but in meiosis 2, all cells won't have the same genetic composition. In animal and plant, the cell produced by meiosis need to mature before they become functional gametes. In male animal, the fourth product of meiosis are called spermatids. They grow tall and become functional sperm cells. In female animal, the gametes are eggs. In order that each egg contains the maximum amount of nutrients, only one of the four products of meiosis becomes an egg. Next. Thank you.
So there are some theory about genetics. Is there anything you don't understand about the theory? If there are some, you can drop the question right now.
Let's continue the class. I will present a video and don't forget to take a note about important points from the video.
Here is a cell, the basic unit of all living tissue. In most human cells, there is a structure called the nucleus. The nucleus contains the genome. In humans, the genome is split between 23 pairs of chromosomes. Each chromosome contains a long strand of DNA, tightly packaged around proteins called histones. Within the DNA are sections called genes. These genes contain the instructions for making proteins. When a gene is switched on, an enzyme called RNA polymerase attaches to the start of the gene. It moves along the DNA, making a strand of messenger RNA out of free bases in the nucleus. The DNA code determines the order in which the free bases are added to the messenger RNA. This process is called transcription. Before the messenger RNA can be used as a template for the production of proteins, it needs to be processed. This involves removing and adding sections of RNA. The messenger RNA then moves out of the nucleus into the cytoplasm. Protein factories in the cytoplasm, called ribosomes, bind to the messenger RNA. The ribosome reads the code in the messenger RNA to produce a chain made up of amino acids. There are 20 different types of amino acid. Transfer RNA molecules carry the amino acids to the ribosome. The messenger RNA is read 3 bases at a time. As each triplet is read, a transfer RNA delivers the corresponding amino acid. This is added to a growing chain of amino acids. Once the last amino acid has been added, the chain folds into a complex 3D shape to form the protein.
So that's the video. After watching the video, let's start the discussion. Any of you want to share your notes to the class? I want 3 people to share their notes to the class and the rest should make a response.
Thank you for showing the notes. Anyone want to respond? Thank you for your response. Now I will add some information about the video as the closing statement.
Okay, so from the video, we can conclude the step of protein synthesis are 1 DNA unzip the nucleus. And then mRNA nucleotide transcript to the complementary DNA message. Then mRNA leave nucleus and goes to ribosome. And then mRNA attached to ribosome and first codon is read. And then tRNA brings in proper amino acid from cytoplasm. And then a second tRNA brings in new amino acid. And then ribosome adds amino acid to the first amino acid with a peptide bond. And then ribosome slides to the next codon for translation. Then tRNA released into cytoplasm until needed again. And the last one is tRNA returns to ribosome, adds amino acid to growing polypeptide chain. So that was the closing statement from me. I hope it could be understood by all of you.
Okay, I hope everyone can understand the material for today's class.
Before we end the class, is there any question from you guys? If there are no questions, Alhamdulillah, we are done for today's class.
Alhamdulillah, I have the material about genetics that we have learned can be understood by all of you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.